tongue cancer. You don't smoke.
Right.
So what happened there, and how were you treated that put you in this difficult position with so much debt?
Well, what happened to me was that I was 17 years old when I moved out on my own, and the only place that I could work to make enough money to pay my bills was in the hospitality industry. So I worked in several bars, several restaurants, pretty much most of my life. What that ended up doing is I ended up trading in tips for toxins when I was diagnosed with secondhand smoke.
So you were a waitress, and correct, and then you got secondhand smoke.
Well, I got stage 3 tongue and throat cancer from the secondhand smoke.
Wow.
Which I thought I was covered. At that point, I was actually out of the hospitality business. I was working for a large company, had been there 8 years, went through my treatment, and eventually ended up losing my job. And with all of that, the bills started piling up. I thought I had enough coverage, but it turned out that I was underinsured. So the insurance companies paid part of it, but not all of it. And I ended up going through my savings account, cashing out my retirement fund, and still had to file bankruptcy on $65,000 in medical bills. And part of the tragedy is that I filed too soon, and I'm now stuck with about $40,000 more.
Oh, so in terms of, so you went in early and then accrued more bills, and you've been unable to add those bills to that bankruptcy.
Exactly.
Wow.
And now I keep them in a box right here because I don't know.
So all those are the bills that you've been getting?
Yeah, they pile up, and I have no idea when or how I'm ever going to be able to pay them. I put them in the box, and unfortunately, it's a constant reminder to me of how badly in debt I am, that not only did I go through the battle of cancer, but now I've been battling financial ruin.
Well, first of all, you're celebrating 5 years of being cancer-free, so we're definitely thankful for that. Now, Michelle and Ralph, both of you understand what insurance pays for and doesn't pay for in terms of the treatment of your sons. How have you been able to grapple with going deeper into debt, taking out additional mortgages on your home? Please share with us your story.
Well, all 3 of our boys were diagnosed with autism basically within a year's time, back in 2004 and 2005. Our oldest son has a lot of medical problems that many children with autism have. You know, it's very common for children with autism to have gastrointestinal problems, sometimes brain inflammation, or just different medical conditions. Luckily, with treatment, intensive treatment, educational and biomedical, 2 of our boys, our younger boys, are almost completely recovered. They were declassified, and they don't really need services anymore.
Now, you think that was because of all the treatment?
Absolutely, all of the treatment.
So for you, it was an investment that paid off?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any investment in my children, you know, it pays off and is worth it. But our oldest son is medically complicated still and severely dependent, and he has a lot of health problems that, you know, aren't always covered by insurance.
Now, Ralph, he's covered under Medicaid, but is that enough to take care of his needs?
It's not enough. It's not enough, and you really, sometimes you're faced with stark choices, because when you find out your son is diagnosed with autism, you're gonna always side to try anything you can, whether it's approved by some board or some agency or not. If you find out through enough parents and through channels that that treatment may work, you're going to do anything you can to try it. It's, you know, your son doesn't have, you don't get to make up any time with a person who has autism. If you don't try something when he's 3 years old or 4 years old, you don't get to make up that time. So you're going to try. So your choice is going to be to try that treatment.
A lot of folks who are not in the industry have no idea all the different rules and regulations. Jim, look, you're in it. You understand it. Right. But you are also facing your own healthcare crisis.
I see it from both ends. I developed atrial fibrillation in the 90s and was in atrial fibrillation for 6 years. That's an irregular heartbeat in the top chambers of the heart. It's kind of like running on 6 cylinders when you really should be running on 8. So I opted for surgery, which cured the problem. And then a year later, they found out I had an aneurysm of the aorta, which is just being watched. But it's for that reason that my health insurance is so expensive. I pay, from my wife and myself, $19,000 a year for the base premium. And if last year was an example with co-pays, co-insurance, medicine, and deductibles, I paid an extra $5.
And your problem is, because you have a pre-existing condition, you quit or you retire.
Well, what
happens?
I'm self-employed. Here's the issue. In all of America, if you're self-employed, you can't be denied a policy. I get audited every year by Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. If they find out I'm not self-employed anymore, they'll drop me. They'll give me 30 days. Then I have to look for a policy on my own as an individual. In 45 states, you can be denied health insurance as an individual. So you have very little protection as an individual. So I got to stay self-employed. So if I go into that individual market, I'm in trouble.
Allie, what's amazing, I want to bring in Allie Velshi, folks. What's amazing about this story is that there's some folks who are covered for some procedures, not covered by others, and then you have pre-existing conditions.
And guess
so
what? Those
it's
of us
all
who
over the
haven't
place.
had to suffer any of this have no idea. I assume, God forbid, if I get sick, I am going to a hospital, someone will take me in, they will diagnose me, they will give me the medication I need. But America, by the way, one of the consequences of the last few years in the economy, we have a negative savings rate. That means we spend more than we save, which means if you are suddenly stuck with a bill for health care that costs you $20,000 or surgery, the money's not there. Now, what happens? You get into debt. People carry this on credit cards. But now we're in a debt crisis, so that credit is hard to come by, and that credit is very expensive. So if there is anything that is a middle-class killer, it is this health care problem, because you could be trucking along just fine until somebody gets sick in your family, and that is the end of your middle-class existence.
Guys, Allie, thanks.